So I finally beat Darksiders, and man, it's been a long time coming. Everyone has this game on PC. There was a time when you could frequently get the original release for next to nothing, and if you owned that, you could get the remastered edition for free on PC. It's gotta have the most owned to least played ratio for users on Steam. I mean, did you play it when it was new, or during the THQ Everything Must Go fire sale? I didn't. Did you even finish it? Despite being a Zelda fan, I never got a chance to sit down and play it all the way through until now. And this is considered to be one of the best Zelda alternatives not made by Nintendo. So, is it an overrated game with an overtly loyal fanbase to match? Or is it a gem that is sitting in everyone's library just waiting to be played? Let's find out. The premise of Darksiders is that humanity and Earth have fallen. War, the main character and one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, is summoned to Earth, causing Armageddon because a seal between demons and angels was allegedly broken. However, this didn't happen, and War's summoning has doomed Earth and humanity through the Armageddon. War must set out to clear his name and find out why he was mysteriously summoned. In the game, you explore post-apocalyptic Earth, go through dungeons, and fight demons and angels in this crazy Zelda meets Book of Revelations kind of game. Visually, the game has a strong art style. It's got some cell shading going on, and some of its color work really pops out. Despite being a post-apocalyptic world, it's not all fire and brimstone. You get a strong variety of levels to explore, both visually and mechanically. Sometimes you'll be running through a swamp, other times a desert. The game also takes a lot of inspiration from the Book of Revelations from the New Testament, as you could probably tell. You've got angels and demons, reckoning, hell on earth, all that kind of stuff. You also got big-name voice actors backing everything up. Mark Hamill as the demon that is basically your jailer. Liam O'Brien as War. You've also got other big-name voice actors like Phil Lamar and Troy Baker. You've got a strong voice talent for this already striking world. And the writing is really fantastic sometimes. Let's talk about gameplay. This is where everyone compares Darksiders to Zelda. When you complete the prologue mission, you have to find a demon named Samael, who essentially tells you you have to find 4 very strong demons, and this essentially sets you out on a quest to fight 4 bosses with their own dungeons to match their designs. You don't know what they look like, but you get an idea as you explore each of their dungeons. This is where most of the Zelda references come from. When you enter the dungeon, there are several areas you can't reach yet. So you explore down the one path you can. This path usually leads to a key. That key finds your way to an item, like a grappling hook. This hook is now used to get to those areas you couldn't access before, as well as let you easily beat some of the dungeon's enemies because the hook exploits a weakness, which is also used on the boss. You can then use that hook in the overworld to not only get to the next place, but also find hidden treasures. In general, you're going to be taking out enemies with your sword through a variety of purchasable combos, unlike Zelda. Now, Darksiders has good gameplay when it's trying to be like Zelda, but the core combat system is not great. It arguably is better than Zelda because it has more going for it, like combos. It plays like a character action game without the crazy combo chains, unfortunately. So you do have combos, but you don't have the crazy chains from something like Bayonetta. You don't have the score system motivation to do better, to get more points. And you don't even have the fluidity of those games. More on that later. It is satisfying to fight enemies. There's even an execution system that looks really sick and flows well into the game. One of the more subtle things that Darksiders does right, and a lot of games really screw this up, is the flow. It's not the best, but it is paced so well sometimes, you really feel that you're moving towards a goal in Darksiders. Yes, everything seems laid out for you plain and simple at the beginning of the game, but exploring new territory and finding new items is always appealing, and there's always something else going on. you get more information about the world and your current standing with it, peppered throughout the game, so it doesn't feel like you're doing boring errands with just nothing going on in between fighting enemies or doing a puzzle, like empty, void space. Something exciting is usually happening, or a revelation is about to be revealed to you. You always get little story bits after each time you do a dungeon. I really should make it clear that in an inferior game, the designers would dump a bunch of tasks on you and only make it a little bit interesting near the end of the mission, giving you a tiny thing to, like, get you motivated to do more while you're already doing something that's boring and you don't want to do. Darksiders is always throwing out short cutscenes to give you some extra information to motivate you to keep playing. One such example being in the desert world where you have to fight in an arena to get your horse back. Now it kind of feels out of nowhere as you didn't even start with a horse. You didn't even see it in the game, you only saw it on the cover of the box, but it's cool because you get a neat cutscene, you fight a mini-boss, and then you get a horse and you can travel throughout the overworld on it. It's cool. This is all amplified by quality writing and delivery. It makes many scenes that would be dull end up standing out a lot more and feeling memorable.
You disappoint me, horseman. You look quite small from up here.
You can look me in the eye when I kill you.
Alright, so this game sounds close to a masterpiece, right? Fun gameplay, a great world, solid voice acting, and memorable dialogue. However, Darksiders struggles in a lot of areas. Too many to break down effectively, so I'll give the main ones right now. Combat and story. In a typical character action game, the combat is the most important thing to get right, and Darksiders just barely manages that. Don't get me wrong, it's a competent and usually pretty fun game, but its peers completely shame it. I'm not even a big fan of games like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, but in those games, they have the core combat basics nailed down. Now, Darksiders has some fun combos. You have the dash forward and stab, you have the launcher, you have the air moves, but your moves feel slower and more restrictive than its peers. With a game like Devil May Cry, in addition to having a lot of weapons to choose from, each weapon usually has a light and heavy attack. The heavy attack being the Y button usually. In Darksiders, at best, you're going to have 3 weapons to choose from, even though there's several others, but the most useful ones are your sword plus 2 sub-weapons, the scythe and the fist. Your sub-weapons are bound to Y, and you have to switch between them manually. The Y button should have been your heavy attack for each weapon. So what this means is that you have very restrictive movesets with each weapon because they mainly utilize one main button. And don't tell me they did that to make it easier for people who don't understand how to do combos. Even casualized character action games like DMC Devil May Cry was easy to learn and had plentiful amounts of combos with more weapons that were all useful and fun, and most importantly, had fluid transitions between weapons and much better hit reaction. In Darksiders, dodging feels sluggish, some weapons are useless, blocking is busted, and weapon switching doesn't feel fluid or natural, and the hit reaction just feels terrible. In Darksiders, there are weapons that are just useless, like the crossblade, outside of solving puzzles. In a game like Zelda, the item would be used more in the overworld or side missions. Darksiders doesn't have a lot of that, if any at all. While there are some cool execution moves, you don't quite have the hit reaction of other games like Zelda, where enemies really look like they're taking hits, and this is the most important thing that Darksiders completely screwed up. I feel like I'm just hitting my sword against a walking health bar. It doesn't feel satisfying to cut down enemies unless it's done through an execution move. This is not even getting into the story without spoiling anything. The game lacks build-up and character development. A character that spouts good dialogue and a voice actor that owns it means nothing if your writing isn't building that character up, making you feel for them, making you relate to them. This is why some action movies from the 80s hold up, and a lot of them don't. When you think of John McClane from Die Hard, you think of the everyman trying to save his family, not just the one-liners. There's moments in that film where you feel for the character despite it being a very simplistic action film. There's a lot going on. What we know about them, what their involvement in the world is, the story, the other characters. It's that feeling that Darksiders has, where you're watching something happen, and there's a sense that you were supposed to understand these characters more, to get more out of what you're looking at, but you end up feeling nothing. Like the creators are more into it than you are. That horse arena fight is a perfect example. I didn't even realize that that was War's horse until after you kill that boss who's talking shit to him. It also doesn't effectively use its setting. Despite this Book of Revelation's post-apocalyptic Earth, you kind of forget where you are after 3 hours in. Like you're just in another generic fantasy world with lots of stairs and buildings. Now, it's one thing to forgive a story that misses the mark or, you know, an underdeveloped combat system because it's not frustrating. What is frustrating is cheap puzzle design, massive difficulty spikes near the end of the game, and performance problems on the War Mastered Edition. It just amplifies other problems the game has. Like how you've seen everything at one point, but there's still 4 hours of game left, so nothing new enters the picture. That kind of stuff. Sometimes the game will straight up not explain an item's potential, so you're left guessing until you look it up and you find out that thousands of other people had the exact same issues. Why did you playtest this game? How am I supposed to know that you could shoot a portal through another portal? It took me like minutes to figure that out. God. Anyway, thankfully there is a reference on each item in the main menu, but God help you if you forget about that too, and you stop playing the game for a month because you got stuck on a stupid puzzle. Ugh! Despite all its shortcomings, when you step back and comb through Darksiders, you can find a good, sometimes great game. You can trace its strong following easily. The initial story setup and world building is still excellent, and the combat was still fun enough that I never got bored of it. It does end on a cliffhanger, and it really shows that the series wanted to be a franchise from the start. You still gotta play as 3 more horsemen after all. It'll be a decade since this game released in January 2010, and it doesn't feel like it. It's still worth playing. Thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my top 5 games of the year video out this December, so there's a lot I gotta catch up on. Check the description to join the Discord if you haven't already. I leave updates regarding videos there. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.